latest edition of Senior Showcase. We've got the college edition, and honored to have with us today Alex Johnson. How are you, Alex?
I'm good. How are you?
Awesome. If you wouldn't mind, just take a minute and share with people what you've been up to the last 4 years and where you just graduated from.
Okay, so I went to the University of West Georgia. It's like 45 minutes straight west of Atlanta. And I pursued a studio art degree with an art history minor. That was fun, really rough. But I did my first 3 semesters on campus, and I did 2 semesters off campus at MCC back in Crystal Lake. And then I did 1 semester strictly like at a distance online through my school while I was living in Hawaii. And then I finished up my last full senior year this past 2 semesters, and I just graduated.
That's awesome. And there's a lot in there. It sounds like you've been in a lot of places. So
It was a
well,
lot.
well, first, tell us, when you were a junior or senior at PR, what led you to go to West Georgia to begin with?
I knew that I didn't want to go to like a super big D1 school. And I had done a softball camp at the school that my parents went to, which was like a small D1 or like a bigger D2. I can't remember. And I just kind of like fell in love with kind of the size of both the campus and the student population. And so I kept my search of schools around that same kind of like category. And through softball, I found University of West Georgia and toured the school and like did a bunch of stuff. Fell in love with the campus, fell in love with the school, and then made the poor decision not to play softball, but went to the school anyways.
Well, tell us about that decision. What happened that all of a sudden, were you burned out? Was it just time for something different?
I think, yeah, I mean, stuff happened with travel ball in terms of like teams falling apart and having to find a new team. And it was just, there's so much going on in the last 2 years that I was playing in high school that I just thought that like, I'm starting a new chapter of my life. Maybe I should just close this section and move on to the next and start completely new. And after my first year, I was like, oh, that was the worst decision of my life. Like, I miss playing. Why did I do that to myself? So, yeah.
And so then in the middle of that, you did then play at MCC for 1 season, right? Or was it 2?
I'm not really sure what the technicalities is of it. I joined for their spring season, and I did spring season, and then I was there for fall semester. And technically we have a fall season, but we played 1 game and practiced 3 times. So I don't really count it as a season.
Okay. And then I know that you spent a little, you mentioned you spent a little bit of time in Hawaii, right?
I did.
And so you continued to do your distance learning you were on a military base, right?
Yeah, so I moved out there and was living and working on base, and I just did all of my classes online. And it was a little bit of a struggle because I was 6 hours behind. So I'd be like turning stuff in at 11 a.m. and I'd be working on it at 6 a.m. And so it was a struggle, but I wouldn't take it back at all. Loved it.
No, that's awesome. And now tell us about your major. Describe that. What made you pick that? Visual arts, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it was studio art. So originally I was going to school for photography, and like that was my only concentration. And then with me wanting to do at a distance learning, and after I kind of dipped my toe deeper into the art department and the art program at West Georgia, I decided to not concentrate on photography and just only do art in general. So instead of taking like 8 different photos classes, I was taking like 3 sculpture classes and a ceramics and a printmaking and photography and like I was doing all of it instead of just the one. It has its pros and cons at the end of the day, but I'm kind of happy that I decided to not do the BFA with photos and just stick with the BA, because I met some really amazing instructors through sculpture and other stuff.
So it was kind of you would say you just kind of became a generalist on different
Yeah.
facets of art.
Yeah.
And
So instead of specifying in one, we had to have, with a BA, you have to have at least two where you're like focusing on two, but you can take art classes of any medium instead of only having to take the one.
now, after you did that, what form of art did you enjoy most?
It was my two favorite ones that I focused on was 3D sculpture, specifically with metal, not so much wood, and then photography. Two very opposite.
Was did West Georgia have a fairly large kind of art program there? Was that part of also why you chose it?
I honestly didn't look too far into the art department or any sort of programs when I was picking a college. I probably should have, just because that's usually what you do when you pick a school, and I just glanced over that. But
You went for softball. I mean, in all fairness,
yeah,
you went to play ball.
and at the end of the day, I made the decision that was right for me at that time, and that's what I did. But I don't think that their art department is large or small. I think that they have a pretty broad program, I guess, as compared to others, but I've definitely seen broader or like more in-depth programs.
Got it. Now, when you went, so West Georgia, were you on campus 1 year or 2 years? How long were you on campus?
So I was on campus for both semesters of my freshman year, and then fall semester of my sophomore year. And then my spring semester I was at MCC, and then fall of junior I was at MCC. And then spring of junior I was in Hawaii, and then fall and spring of senior up until coronavirus I was on campus.
Well, first of all, congratulations, because you still finished on time.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that you moved around and you had kind of three different things that happened while you were in college, it's awesome that you were able to stay on task and actually finish
Well,
in
thank
4 years. Tell us about Georgia, Western Georgia University. Where's it at? Is it a rural campus, an urban campus? What's it like there?
So it's in a town called Carrollton, and it's 45 minutes literally just straight west. Like you could just take Atlanta and then draw a line and you'll get to Carrollton. It's rural, that's for sure. But we have like two large urban, more like up to date, I guess you could call, towns that surround us. And I mean, it's pretty yee for sure.
So for people who aren't country fans, explain the yee.
Step back, struck a match, and watch that Friday night. Raise them up to the sky. If you're trying to throw down, get a little country fade and take your way on out. Park your truck in the lane. If you're looking for boys and the girls in love, the boys in the blue collars, holler.
You're surrounded by woods, and there's a lot of farms kind of in the county and in town, around the town, not necessarily in town. And we have what you would think of like a historic old downtown, and the train runs through there all the time. It's just very more country than Crystal Lake, I would say.
Sure. Now, what did you enjoy the experience there?
I did. It was at the time, I really wanted to do or go somewhere that was more country. And, I made the decision based off of everything that I know and knowing what I know now. I still love Carrollton, and I love the school, and I love the friends and the experiences and the memories that I have there. But if I were to do my decision over again, I would go elsewhere.
Okay. Okay. Now, what would you have changed? What do you felt you would have preferred to have that maybe you didn't have at West Georgia?
I think just I probably would have picked a different geographic location, like still southern, but a little bit less in the woods, surrounded by some farms, and a little bit more like uh I don't know, more, I guess, towards the beach or closer to the beach, and just more things to do around town. Because for us, it was pretty much you had the downtown, which had restaurants and bars, and we had some stores. But beyond that, like if you wanted to go bowling, you're driving 40 minutes. And then if you want, so like, I don't know, just with more things to do close to campus.
Okay, so then what did you do for social activities while you were there that first year and a half?
I mean, we would drive to go bowling a lot. And we would do movie nights in the residence halls. I worked on campus at the rec center, so I did a lot of stuff with the outdoor rec department, and that was really fun. Definitely a lifesaver. Best decision I ever made was working there. What else do we do? I mean, we would just hang out. I mean, obviously we'd go downtown and go shopping and eat food and go to the bars, but
Was that a typical Southern food? I mean, tell me a little bit about the food and what would be a great place in Carrollton to go grab a bite to eat.
you would think that you were like in Southern California or Texas. There's like 7 Mexican restaurants in a 2-mile radius. It's insane. But
Yeah, I would not expect that in West Georgia.
no, not at all. And you're driving through and they're like next door to each other. They're right down the road, literally 2-mile radius. There's 7 of them. It's insane. So Mexican was always a big thing because it was just so common. But really, really good barbecue place called Sam's. Really good food.
Was this like a white barbecue sauce like they have in the Carolinas? Or was it a regular tomato-based kind of barbecue or?
Definitely your dark tomato base barbecue sauce, super good. And then they have, I don't know what they're called. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not from Georgia, so I'm not familiar, and I always forget the name. But they have these, like, in essence, cornbread pancake things that they give you as a side dish for every meal.
Oh,
And you
sure.
could get them for, you get like 4 of them for a quarter. They're so good. I have no idea what they're called, but they're so good.
So were they potato pancakes or corn? You said cornbread pancakes.
Corn, like some type of cornbread pancake.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I don't know
So
what
instead of getting that side of cornbread that some barbecue places gave, they gave you
yeah,
the pancakes.
yeah, plus whatever your sides were. But yeah,
Oh,
you always automatically got these little pancakes, and they're so good.
you're killing me because I mean I love barbecue from Tennessee to Bama
Oh,
to.
so
Uh,
good.
Now you were on the Bama border basically, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
did you venture in Alabama? I guess people were probably split in who they were fans of there. You probably had Bulldog, or were most of them Bulldog fans?
Majority of people were UGA. Like most people were, go Dogs. For me, I was indifferent because I'm not from the South. I don't have but I think if I had to pick, I would pick Bama over Georgia. But that's
There
just
you go.
me.
There you go. We'll get a roll tide out of you.
Roll Tide,
Uh,
yeah.
did you? I haven't picked up a y'all or any of that from you. Like you get from some Southern people and some of your fellow classmates that have since been down there. I'll come back with a y'all. Did you pick that up after you lived there a little bit?
So I would say y'all before going down south. And like my friend group, we all would like in a text message as a joke. It was just always something that came up. But then going down there, I would text it more as a joke, but I still don't really say it unless
Okay.
it's kind of more of like in a laughing matter. I picked up an accent, that's for sure, and it comes out every once in a while. But I don't know. I think I've stuck pretty good with the y'all thing.
Now tell us about, because you grew up out west, right?
Hmm.
So tell everyone about first your kind of where you grew up, describe your family, give us their names, what they're doing, where they're at, and a little bit about how you ended up in Crystal Lake.
So, grew up in Southern California in the valley or the desert, depending on what you want to call it. Everyone knows Palm Springs because that's the big tourist destination with all of the palm trees and the mountains, and all the celebrities go there. But I was 2 towns down called La Quinta, but it's all the same, honestly. Um, I don't know. I mean, there's 6 of us in my family, and my best friends growing up, we had 4 kids in my family. They had 4 kids in their family. And then our other best friends that they were like my own siblings, they had 5 kids. So I grew up in a very large environment and I loved every second of it. And, we were super involved in the community and played sports out there, and I still have family out there. And so I knew everybody. Like, that's where I grew up. And then I moved to Crystal Lake because my dad got a new job and wanted to be close to O'Hare, but not in Chicago at all. So
Hmm.
we ended up picking Crystal Lake because of an opening on a softball team. And that
There
kind of
you go.
snowballed the whole thing, and we moved here, and it was a huge culture shock. Like, it took me many years to adjust to the difference of living here versus where I came from. And I don't know. I mean, like, I played sports. Like, my social life and everything here originated and was kind of founded on softball. And then I went to high school here, and I don't know, you make friends when you're in high school. And so it was definitely a different experience than what I came from.
Did you start 8th grade here or just freshman year? Was freshman year your
I had
start?
8th grade here. I did do 8th grade here.
Okay, so you were at Hannah. Is that where you were?
Yes.
Okay. So you got a chance to at least meet some of the kids you weren't
Yeah.
fresh coming
Yeah.
into TR. Okay. So describe your family members. Tell us their names, what they're doing.
So my mom and dad, aka Trish and Mike, they have kept quite busy with all 4 of us. My dad still coaches softball here, coaches my youngest sister Carly's team. And currently he is unemployed. He was laid off. So that's just a little bit of a struggle.
Was that during the COVID?
No, it was in January.
Oh man. Okay.
And then, so every interview that he's had since then has been called off because of COVID. So it's just been a snowballing effect with that.
Sure.
My mom, she was substitute teaching here for a long time, and then ended up getting a part-time job at MCC, and she's up for a full-time job now at MCC. And she still does some personal training stuff. I know a handful of people in the community have encountered her workouts. But
Or we
she's
should say people have thrown up in her basement. Is that the rumor?
they're that's definitely the rumor. Not sure how accurate it is, but that's definitely the rumor. My brother, it's crazy to think. My brother just finished his freshman year of college and he plays lacrosse. It's so wild being the oldest sibling and witnessing this.
Where's
Sam,
your Where's your brother at?
he is at Hiram University, which is in Ohio. Very small school. Wouldn't expect anyone to hear of it. But Sammy is going into her senior year at PR, and Carly is going into her junior year at PR. And it's crazy because I still think of them as 6 years old.
Sure. Are your sisters both involved in softball? Are they into other sports as well, or what are they into?
Sammy does volleyball and lacrosse. And then Carly does softball, and she did do volleyball up until like this past year, and I think she called it quits after that. Or maybe she didn't. Honestly, I have no idea.
Hmm. Um, So when you were at PR, what were the things you were involved with? You talked about softball. Was that the core of it, or what else did you check out and do?
I mean, softball was definitely the core just because that was my like livelihood. Like I did it for 15 years, but I also did volleyball. I dabbled a year in volleyball and would have kept playing, but I, gave it up for softball to focus on that. I did a little bit of set crew with the winter play my senior year. Other than that, I'm just did like my own stuff outside of school and hung out with people.
Now, well, first let's talk about your freshman year. How did you handle the transition from high school to college? And obviously you're able to maintain your grades and do what you needed to do.
Mhm.
Any kind of advice or disciplines that you put in place when you first went, or was it initially a struggle?
For me, I didn't struggle, which is shocking because, everyone says that you struggle and it's the hardest adjustment. For me, right away in August, I applied for a job at Outdoor Rec and I like instantly started working. So I would have a very tight schedule of my classes, of work, of doing homework and projects. And that way, like I was holding myself accountable. And honestly, like I think all of the credit goes to getting a job. Because I think if I were to not have had, I wouldn't say too much on my plate, but if I weren't to have had the responsibilities in school, I think I would have slacked off more. But my freshman year was also super different. They put me in an art block, which is like a fast track program where we take 18 credits a semester for the freshman year. So we end up taking 36 and you don't pick your classes. They're given to you. You're with the same 15 people for the entire year. And you're doing two full 16-week classes and then 4 8-week classes. And the 8-week classes are all studio art classes. So I had no time to eat or sleep, like not having a job and then having a job on top of it. It really made me not blow off my homework and my projects.
Sure. Now, did you have some gen ed classes in there too? Were those like your 16-week ones, or were you able to get out of a lot of those?
So for the first year, the only gen eds that you take is English. So you'll take English 1 and then English 2, and that's it. Everything else is art history 1 and art history 2, and then it's like all studios. So drawing, painting, you name it, all of it.
Okay. Now, let's jump over. Then you spent some time in Hawaii. How long were you out in Hawaii?
I was there about like 7 or 8 months, up like January till end of July, and then I went back to school in August.
Okay. So while you're out there, I think, didn't you nanny a little bit when you were out in Hawaii?
I did. I was a full-time nanny for a military family who she ended up being from, oh shoot, what's the name of it? No. Where's Gurney Mall?
It's Gurney.
Oh, well, she ended up being from Gurney. It was super funny because she like texted me and it was an 847 number and I was like, where are you from? She's like, Gurney. I was like, no kidding. So yeah, it was funny.
Oh, nice. So how many kids did you have?
Just the one. She was a baby. So I started, with the Army, you get 3 months of maternity leave. So I started a little bit before her 3 months was over. So I started babysitting when she was like 2.5 months and then carried on until I left.
Now, was she the spouse or was she the service member?
She was the service member. Her husband is a vet. So they met when they were both in and then he got out and she's still in.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So what base were you on?
Schofield Barracks, which is in the dead center of Oahu.
Oh, it's in a dead center. So you're kind of in the hilly part where.
Yeah. So you have like mountains on both sides. Yeah. And Dole Plantation is right in the middle of the island and Dole Plantation is right up the road.
Sure.
And so the housing that I lived on was right behind the Dole Plantation fields. And that road, like to and from base, is the only one that you take to get to North Shore. So like we're right in the middle.
Yes, all the tourists. I remember going there
Oh
when you'd
yeah.
visit North Shore. So did you spend more time going up to the North Shore when you had some free time, or did you hit Waikiki and Honolulu? Where would you go?
Oh, I definitely went to the North Shore more. I wish I would have gone to Honolulu and Waikiki more because I love the area so much. But I definitely spent more time on the North Shore and then over in K Bay, which is like the east side where the Marine Corps and the Air Force Base is.
Got it. And I would always hear about this famous burger joint on the North Shore.
Teddy's?
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Is it Teddy's?
That maybe it is. I mean, it's been years. So I mean, now we're talking 20 years. So I don't even know if the place is still there. But
I don't know. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is Teddy's because that's a huge burger joint out there, and it's delicious. It's expensive, but it's worth every penny. It's so good. And I like didn't realize how hungry I was one time, and I accidentally ordered the biggest burger, and then I ate the whole thing, and then my waiter just looks at me and was like, "Okay then."
you're like, how is she packing this down?
Yeah,
So,
he did. He looked at me and was just like, that was unexpected. Like it was
yeah.
unexpected for me too. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't realize I was hungry.
So did you try surfing, or had you surfed already when you were a kid in Hawaii, in Cali?
That's the biggest question I get all the time. With how much sports that I played and how busy I was, I never got the opportunity to do any kind of surfing growing up. And I'm so jealous. I would always request. I like beg my grandma, please. It just never would work out. But I did. I went out one time, but the surf was terrible. And I was tired, and I just I said, screw it. Every time I would try to go out surfing, because I had a board when I was out there. Every time I would go out surfing, it's just like the circumstances never worked out for me to go. But one day I'll go.
Well, I know, and for people that don't know, I think the North Shore is where they have some of the world championships sometimes,
Oh
right?
yeah.
For
So
surfing.
like you always have a surf competition there all the time. And like I want to say it's the big US Open that's always out there. And like Billabong and bands, everyone, there's always something. And it's very interesting. It's a totally different experience driving down the North Shore and going to the beaches there than any other location I like to say in the United States. It's kind of like a free-for-all, make your own parking on both sides of the road because it's just a 2-lane road and traffic is terrible. You make your own parking on a hill or in a ditch, like it's interesting. And then when the surfing competition's going on, whew, that's a whole nother ball game for parking and traffic.
Now, and you were going to, so you were also taking courses online at the same time, right?
Yes.
And obviously that must have been a challenge. You're trying to juggle everything that you're doing and then still, keep up with your schoolwork.
So I was a part-time student for 3 semesters. I was a part-time student when I was at MCC for both semesters, and then I was a part-time student when I was in Hawaii. So just because I wanted to enjoy my time, and I already knew that I would be working full-time and it was going to make it difficult. So adding classes, a full-time schedule of classes on top of that wasn't going to be ideal. So I did the part-time and did all of the 8-week classes that I could take because those save lives. And it was a lot of work at times. And there were times where I'm like, the time change would get to me and I would forget and miscalculate it, or I would oversleep or something. But at the end of the day, I managed to balance it a little bit, or I'd be hanging out with people and taking a quiz on my phone or something. I don't know.
No, that's awesome though. Now, for people, because I know you didn't have this when you graduated your senior year, so you've moved your hand a few times. So tell us about the artwork you got on your left arm.
Oh yeah.
Was that Hawaii inspired, or fill us in on that?
No. So I didn't even realize I talk with my hands. I'm sorry.
Oh no. No, show it. Show it off. You got it, right?
I
What
got
is it?
So this one, I studied abroad in Costa Rica for a month for Spanish, and this I took from the artwork that was in a folk tale book that they had. These are just, there's three separate all in as a half sleeve. These are just flowers.
That
Um,
definitely gives the Hawaii look.
oh,
Those flowers.
100%. And like hibiscus is my favorite flower, and that's
Yeah.
a Hawaiian flower, so it just adds to it. But then this was just, I can't even say. This was just a filler tat. It's like my least favorite, but it's there. No, they were not Hawaii inspired. I got it somewhere between when I was 19 and 20 is when I did it. I would have a lot more if I had a lot more money, but I don't. So
So with that being said, what's next? You're talking about getting money, and I know you've got plans here. So tell everyone what you're going to be up to.
So, I have enlisted in the Army as active duty, and I will be a 31 Bravo, which is military police. And I leave July 20th to go to Missouri for 5 months for training. And then from there, Lord knows where I'll be or what I'll be doing. But yeah, that's my next chapter of my adult life.
And that's awesome. So first of all, just thank you for
Thank
that
you.
sacrifice and wanting to serve our country. That's awesome.
Thank you.
And then also tell everyone, because you at your point, since you're a college grad,
Mhm.
could have gone in as an officer and you chose not to. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that's always the biggest assumption is when you, sorry, my mom keeps kicking my charger. When you have a college degree and you go into the military, that you are to be an officer. And that's a very safe assumption because that is the majority of what people do. I decided not to just because I want to start off with a different experience and I want to get the hands-on experience and understand how everything works and just like have the true military soldier experience and lifestyle before ever trying to put myself in a leadership position where I'm in charge of these soldiers every day. And officers, it's also a lot of paperwork. And while I'm young and full of ADHD and energy, I want to be able to like do all of the dirty work first and then do the paperwork second.
Awesome. And then what made you pick MP?
I've always loved and not crime, but I've always loved like first responder, police work. Crime shows are probably like my favorite go-to binge watching, have on as background noise type of thing. And so that was always something that I had an interest in. And then when I toured the FBI building last summer, I don't know, like you always hear about the FBI and you're like, that's unachievable. Like that's just a dream. Like only certain people get to do that. And then after touring it, I fell in love and I was like, that's what I want to do. And the best way for me to do that is to do the military. And then I wanted to just take it a step further and make the decision for myself to do MP and then hopefully chase after FBI later.
Awesome. Now you toured it in Virginia or where'd you tour their facility?
Yeah, so when I got back from Hawaii, I didn't go home. I flew to DC to meet my family for a vacation in DC. And my mom had arranged for us to tour the FBI building because that was her dream job growing up. Like at my age, when she graduated, that was her dream job, was that.
Sure. So this is Quantico then, right?
The Hoover building.
Oh, okay. Nice.
And
How you doing? Since you're back there, you might as well pop in and just show everyone, show yourself to the crowd.
she says no.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see if we can get Mom to appear. She's not known to be shy.
No, she's doing laundry, so I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, so we toured it, and I don't know, it just like hit me. I was like, wait, it's actually possible for people to work in the FBI, and I just like I fell in love and I wanted to do it. And I don't get me wrong, I wanted to join the military prior to touring the FBI building. Like I have been in the recruiter's office since senior year of high school, and I've been in there probably 6 times. I almost signed last year, actually. I almost didn't go back to school and almost signed last year, but I made the decision to finish school.
No, great. So at this point, it's kind of all up in the air. You don't know. You may be enlisting. You may go to officer candidate school later. You may just get out and try to get in with the FBI. You're kind of.
I have no plan. It's just I've learned that the more you plan, the more it blows up in your face. So, so with that, there's no plan. I'm solely just focusing on like what I'm doing right now for myself, and where it will take me, I don't know.
All right, but you also have dreams, right? So if we look 10 years out into the future, what would be the perfect situation for Alex, albeit where you're living, what you're doing, family situation, et cetera, et cetera?
10 years down the road, I don't know. I think I would hope to have a family and like be married with kids, have a family. And I don't know. I don't want to say like that I would be in the military, and I don't want to say that I'd be out of the military, but I think because I could go either way, but I think as of right now, I can picture in 10 years being out and achieving the FBI dream.
Awesome. Now, since you got your mom's in the background, I'm not sure if she could hear or not, but is she, are there tears being shed by a certain Trish there to that her firstborn is going to go tackle the world and go into training?
No, she's excited. I mean, it's been a long time coming. It's been something I first mentioned it when I was 17. That came as a shock when I first mentioned it. And you know, we had some harsh discussions when I was 17 and harsh discussions when I was 18, 19. And then, but after that, by the time I was 19, 20, 21, going on 22, like they knew that that was what was going to happen. And she would nudge me. I would keep it a secret this whole year. I didn't want to tell anybody that that was my plan. And she would nudge me every once in a while. She's like, so like, are you going to enlist after you graduate? And like try and bait me. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, we'll see. But
Was it going to be Army? Was it going to be Army all the way, since that's where you had some exposure?
Always.
Okay.
I was interested in the Army even in high school. The Air Force, it's cool. It's just not my thing. The Marines, not my thing. And the Navy, I just don't want to be on a boat for 6 months at a time.
Yeah, I hear you. Claustrophobia gets in the way.
Yeah, and my tattoos took me out of the running for Marines and Navy anyways, so my only option at this point was Army and Air Force.
Did they really? I did not realize that. And I say this in a respectful way. So jarheads are able to get tattoos after they're in, but not before?
So you can have some going in, but even when you're in, there's certain places that you can and cannot have tattoos.
Okay.
The Marines are the strictest with tattoos, and then the Navy, and then the Air Force and the Army don't care. As long as it's not on your neck and it's not on your hands, they don't care.
Okay. So as long as you're not looking like a gangbanger or something, they're good.
Yeah. As long as I'm not like, have tears.
No teardrops. Yep. Yeah. Like the guy we happen to have seen a couple days ago.
The one yesterday.
Yeah. Alex and I happen to have been somewhere, and we saw an interesting gentleman that drew a little concern for both of us, but and it had nothing to do with the tattoos either.
No, nothing. It was just an interesting situation.
So You know, and we had talked about this as well when we were together, that I definitely, you know, see this leadership inside you and this ability to be able to lead people. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts around that and kind of your desire. And do you feel that that's something you're wired to do?
I definitely think that not that I'm the last person to toot my own horn at all. That's just not what and I don't,
Well, that's why I'm tooting it for you right now.
but, I, if I'm being told to answer this question, I would
Yes.
say that I do have a leadership lifestyle, like leadership qualities in me. And I think a lot of that comes from softball and from my position as being a catcher. I
Yep.
think part of that comes from my very bold personality that I get from both of my parents. And yeah, and my goal going into the military was never that I wanted to lead and that I wanted to be in charge. It was that I just wanted to be a part of it, and I wanted to serve and have that experience and those adventures and those memories. But leading definitely, because I will be in a leadership position within the first 18 months. Because with a degree, I go in as an E4, and then my next promotion in 18 months would be E5, which is a sergeant as an NCO. And I'm excited. I mean, I've met some great NCOs, and there's something to be said for each quality that they have and their styles and what you learn from each of them. And I would only hope to continue having them as mentors and make sure that I do a good job, because I've witnessed really bad leaders in the military, and I don't want to be one of those. I want to be the one that like makes everyone's experience great instead of terrible.
Yeah, and then I think you recognize that leadership has nothing to do with rank. It's from the
No, not at
individual,
all. And I'm aware going in with my rank and the position that I'm put in with that everyone else has 3, 4, 5, 6 years of experience on me, and I have none. And so my goal for the first years is not to get promoted. I will put it off as long as I can for the first 2 years, just because I don't want there to be a situation where people think that I'm there for the rank and not for anything else.
got it. No, that's awesome. So when you talk about mentors and leadership, so if you reflect back at your time at PR, who are those people that either faculty or staff or coaches that had a huge impact on you while you were there?
I think the biggest one, and I know a lot of people at PR will say the same thing, was Mrs. Sullivan, who was an English teacher, and still to this day, I mean, what, 6, 7 years later, I don't even know how long, 7 years later, I think, she is like the biggest influence, the biggest, like, I don't even know, just the biggest highlight of my high school experience. And I just like, I don't know, I look up to her so much. Everyone looks up to her so much. And I have to credit a lot of how I grew and matured and what I learned in high school to her.
Tell me about that. What was it? Oh, tell me about what it was in the classroom that really impacted you.
She didn't follow, I mean, this it's going to sound bad, but she didn't follow the rules per se. I mean, they were trying to implement Common Core, where each teacher teaches the same thing the same way, and
Sure.
that's just not her. And she was a younger teacher, so that allowed for her to connect to students differently or better. I don't know how you want to say that. But she was just always super real and super honest. And like when freshman year, when a very terrible incident happened with Cherry, who was in our grade, the teachers were instructed not to discuss the incident. And she came into class crying because she was told she couldn't talk about it. And she's just like, that's not right. Like, if you guys want to talk about, she was your classmate, she was your friend. Like, if it's something that you want to talk about and need to talk about, then like, let's talk about it. And she was always very real about life, about emotions. She didn't hide anything. Like there were several times where all of us were crying in class, including her. I don't know. She was just a very transparent, always had your back. She mentored and counseled a lot of people, and whether she had you in class or not. And I don't know, she just made a very big impact on people, and she didn't even realize it.
Got it. And then just for people that don't know, this involved one of your classmates committing suicide, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, I can imagine that was really hard, and
Yeah.
you could tell the impact that it made on you guys, and how Miss Sullivan handled that.
Oh yeah. And there was so much, she always made so much fun. Like we would have reenactments of Shakespeare with toilet paper, and like, oh yeah, like her creativity and her realness and her transparency was what made everyone so comfortable with talking to her about anything, whether it was class related or not.
That's awesome. Now, are there any other teachers? Sounds like she definitely was number one on your list, and there's some other
Yeah.
people that also had a huge impact.
I mean, Miss Body, great math teacher. I love her to death. Like still to this day, because my siblings have her as a teacher, and I get so excited. Like when they would go on Zoom or Google Meets or whatever they were using, I'm like, oh, Miss Body. I had her and Mrs. Sullivan the most for math and English. I had Mrs. Sullivan 2 years back to back, and I had Body 2 years back to back. So I spent a lot of time with these two. And Miss Body was just always like a ray of sunshine. Like she walks into any classroom, her laugh is contagious. She always was like close with students, always wanted to have a friendship. And just her teaching style is great too. And you got great teaching style for math, that always helps. But as a person, she's just like a ray of sunshine. And every time you see her, she lights up and she's like, hi. And it was just great.
Oh yeah, no, most definitely. So, don't want to leave anyone out. Anyone else you want to add to that list? That's a pretty high-powered list.
Mrs. Berg is a great counselor, great person. I knew her through softball because her daughter plays, and her daughter is Carly's age, my youngest sister's. And so I had interactions and relationship with her outside of class or outside of school. And then every time I would go into school, she's just your best friend. And she was always willing to help anybody, whether she was your counselor or not. And I don't know, great friend. There's a lot of great people that I didn't necessarily have as teachers, but they were just like always willing to be your friend and be real and there for you.
Oh, cool. So now if you reflect it back on all your experiences, and now you're giving advice to a junior or senior debating what's next. School, military, trades, gap, any advice that you have for people as they look at the future and how to process it?
It's definitely overwhelming, and it's definitely scary, no matter if you're 16, 17, 18 years old, 19, 22, like it doesn't matter. The unknown is always scary. And I know that there's a lot of pressure that comes from the school. There's a lot of pressure that comes from family. There's a lot of pressure that comes from society. And then at the end of the day, like you're pressuring yourself because of all of it. And, I don't know. I just think at the end of the day, don't be scared to do what you want. And it's okay to not know what you want. And that was the biggest thing that I learned too, was like, it's okay to not know. And whatever decision you make at this moment in time was the best decision that you could have made for yourself at that time. Like you can't look down the road 2 years later and be like, oh, I should have made this decision instead, because at the end of the day, you didn't know any different. And I don't know. So just don't be afraid to do something different. Do what you want. It might not be what your parents want or what school wants or anything, but it's your life. It's your decision. It's your happiness. And you have to make the best decision for yourself at that time, given what you know.
No, well said. Well said. So, quarantine. Where were you when everything kind of hit the fan, and what were you doing? And fill us in on that.
So I was in Georgia, and trying to like replay because the whole thing spiraled within like 4 days. And it was March. I know that. It was beginning of March. And I had come home for a weekend to surprise my family and be like, oh, haha, and spent 3 days here. And I flew back, and I go back to school, and people are talking about, well, actually no one was talking. And then the next day, all of a sudden in my night class at like 6:30, my professor is saying that the University Systems of Georgia, which is like the overall board of all colleges in Georgia, was talking about making a decision as to what to do. And so they're like, there's a talk of school being shut down. There's a talk of school being like shut down for 2 weeks only or for the rest of the semester. And we're like, okay, that's helpful. A day goes by, nothing. Next day, they send out an email at 3 p.m. saying school's not shutting down. Everything is to resume as normal. And like we're coming up on our spring break too. So they're like, you go to your spring break, you'll come back, everything will be fine. 3 hours later, we get an email saying, psych, we're closing for 2 weeks. Everyone has to evacuate campus by the following day at 5 p.m. And but basically the first day of spring break. By 5 p.m., everyone has to be off campus. You will receive further notice as to what the decision will be at a later time. It was basically a TBD. They bought themselves 2 weeks to figure out what to do. And at this point, Alabama had already made their decision, but none of Georgia was allowed to make a decision because it was up to the USG. So I left and I drove home because I had no option because I don't live in Georgia. So I drove the 12 hours home and turned around and drove back down to Gulf Shores, Floribama, Pensacola area, whatever, with my mom and my sisters. And this was before like everything had shut down. And because I knew, I was like, I'm going to have to get my stuff. Like they're going to close it. They're going to wait till the last minute to close it down and tell us to come get our stuff. And sure enough, I get an email the following week saying, on Monday at 2 p.m., please come move your stuff out of your room. Campus will be closed and the classes will be resuming online. You couldn't have told me that a week ago. I was every single one of us was so frustrated, but that was why I went down to Gulf Shores in the first place, because I knew that I was just going to have to drive right back. So on the way back up, I stopped at school, I piled everything into a car, and I drove back, and I have did my quarantine coronavirus end of the semester in Illinois with everyone else.
So what have been some of the quarantine Johnson family traditions that have started?
Walks. I think everyone can say walks.
You didn't sound too excited over that, walks.
I think everyone can say walking was like the biggest family gathering extravaganza to happen. Movie night every once in a while. My mom implemented this thing where we would each cook dinner for everyone one night of the week, so that way like there was variety and no one could complain about food. Sure. It lasted about 3 weeks out of the 8 weeks, I think. It just got to be too much. If I'm gonna be honest, it was so hard, and I cooked a lot too, and so like I would cook 4 times out of the week, and the rotation would get messed up, and it's fine.
So what was your favorite recipe that you offered?
I was the one doing the easy thing. I was like, all right, chicken, rice, and broccoli it is. Let's go. I don't know. We random stuff. Like my brother would do homemade chicken Alfredo. My sister would do fried rice, fried pickles. I would do,
Fried pickles.
yeah, why
There we
not?
go.
Mozzarella sticks. Carly decided to do mozzarella sticks, and Disney released their recipes, so she did the Disney churros one day.
I had no idea.
I didn't either. I think it was like a TikTok thing, if I'm gonna be honest.
Okay.
But just one day she was like, Disney released their recipe. Like, I'm gonna make churros. All right, you do that.
And how
I made
were
a
they?
lot of banana bread. A lot of banana bread. Yeah. There's a lot of cooking there for the first 3 weeks.
So mom isn't like led an aerobics class like it wouldn't be aerobics with your mom. It'd be like kind of what's the most intense cardio strength training program out there? That'd be your
I have
mom,
no
I'm guessing.
idea. For Carly's softball team, they were doing Zoom workouts, or they're still doing Zoom workouts just to, keep 14 and 15-year-old girls accountable,
Sure.
because they're not accountable for anything other than TikTok and Netflix. But I would do that a little bit, but I was working out on my own mostly when I would work out, just because, I don't know, I like to do my own thing, like take my time. So it was just my own thing.
What's the binge watching been?
Anything and everything. I mean, Outer Banks, obviously, because that was the biggest show to blow up in a matter of 3 days. It was number 1 by like day 10. It was like number 3, I think, by day 3.
No Money Heist for you, or
No, I think my brother was watching that. I don't know. I bounced around. I was also doing a lot of homework, so I didn't really like binge watch to the same extent that I normally would binge watch. I tried out the Vampire Diaries finally.
okay.
It was slow. That 70s show was a big binge. Friends was taken off, so I would have rewatched it 3 times by now. It's fine.
Okay. So how did you stay connected with your friends and classmates or people that you had been close with over the last 3 years?
I mean, we would text and Snapchat like usual. And then every once in a while we would do Zoom. Or, yeah, it was mostly Zoom. I wouldn't say FaceTime, but a little bit of FaceTime. And I would get thrown on to like my friends' Zoom happy hour that they would do with all of her friends, and just like, I did what I could, but I was tired a lot.
Got it. All right. So this one, I didn't prepare you to answer this question, but your parents could probably answer this. What's a unique trait or quirky thing that Alex does, or a hidden talent?
I don't know.
So we've had anything from water skiing to touching their nose with their tongue to singing in the shower. So what is it when you look back on what you do? What don't people just know about you? It could be serious. It doesn't have to be funny.
No, I don't know. I mean, I feel like everyone knows that like I'm really energetic and loud, so I feel like that takes a lot of things off the table. I don't know.
So if I asked you the question, what would be the song that you'd be singing in the shower these days?
It'd probably be a Harry Styles song, to be honest. Harry Styles has been like the mood for quarantine for me and my friends, and I don't know why. I think it's because he has both like happy and sad songs, and that's kind of like the best of both worlds.
Is this his solo career or?
Yeah, his solo career.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to let you off the hook on this quirky
All right,
thing.
I'll come up with something.
Maybe I'm going to interject Mom on this one and go, hey, Mom, what's... No,
I'm
go ahead.
looking at her trying to come up with something.
Hey, Trish, you could hop in here real quick. Come on over.
No.
Come on. This isn't... Don't worry. Why, is your mom having a bad hair day or something?
She's sweaty. We were putting the... Yeah.
I worked out.
There she is.
So I'm
How
all
are you?
Good. How are you?
Awesome. So what's the quirky thing that Alex does? Come on, your mom. You should know all her secrets.
You know, I mean, she's always quirky. That's just kind of who she is.
And you're not that short. You must be on your
No,
knees.
I am on my knees.
I'm on my bed.
You know, she's kind of always quirky, but they like to brag about who can do what in our family. And I was like, you can tie, you know how you have like a cherry stem, you know, that comes on the cherries? She
Yes.
can tie that with her tongue. Like she
No,
can tie
you
a cherry stem
can't.
into a knot with her tongue.
No way.
Yeah. And she makes her tongue look like
I could do a clover.
a
with
clover
my tongue.
leaf with her tongue. It's the weirdest thing. So you have to show
It's
it.
like it's recessive. There's only like a very
There's
small
very few
percentage.
people that can do it.
A very.
Oh my
I feel
gosh.
awkward, though.
It's
All right,
actually
I won't look. I won't look.
No, you can look.
it's
You can
like
look.
it bends the end of her tongue.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So because
Oh.
she can do weird things, then she can tie a cherry stem in a knot with her tongue.
I can like beer bong in like less than 3 seconds. Does
Yeah,
that
that too.
count?
Less than 3 seconds?
I
You'd knock out half the college guys with that. Holy
I
cow.
shocked myself. I was on the beach, so I like just came back from Florida. I was visiting my best friend Paige, and like, cause I have a flabongo, like the flamingo beer bong, and that was my 21st birthday present. Was a flabongo. Probably shouldn't be talking about this on a podcast, but
A flabango. Nice.
but Paige's friend has like the normal, typical like funnel beer bong.
Sure.
And I like get out, I'm coming up from the ocean and Paige just hands it to me and she's like, you have to do it. I was like, okay. And so I did it and it like totally shocked myself. It was literally in like less than 3 seconds. And she just looked at me and was like, that was really aggressive.
You probably shocked your mom. Notice how your mom just snuck away after that one.
I don't think I don't think that should be a hidden talent. You can just erase that off of the podcast.
No. So, well, again, you know, you've had such kind of a diverse 4 years that I'm like, you know what, we got to talk to you. And just, you've got an awesome story. You're a tremendous example of your class. You've gone through so much. You've come out on top. You've graduated. You're going to serve your country. And, you know, you've got a lot ahead of you in life. So you should be very proud and just thank you for taking the time to talk with us today.
Of course.
Everybody just clap your hands.